I'm Alan Colmes. I want to welcome to our microphones Jamen Shively. He is behind an effort to bring to the state of Washington premium marijuana. Is that correct, Jamen? And you are also a former Microsoft manager, executive at Microsoft. An interesting career choice for you, huh?
Thank you very much, Alan. And first of all, I want to say it's an honor to be on your show. I've enjoyed watching you all these years on Fox, and it's kind of hard to believe I'm actually talking with you.
I know.
So thank you for having me on.
It must be a real thrill for you. No, I'm just kidding. But no, thank you. I appreciate those kind words. Well, tell me what you're doing. So you've got an interesting, there you are, a big deal at Microsoft, and now you've totally made a career change based on the legalization of marijuana in your state, right?
That's exactly right, and it's a really interesting story. I've actually got marijuana in my blood, so to speak. My my great-grandfather was a Spaniard, Diego Pellicer, and as a young man, he went off to the Philippines, as many young men in Spain did of that era.
And that's the name of your company, by the way. Yeah, yes, go ahead.
Sorry. Yeah, exactly. So, so he went off to the island of Cebu in the Philippines, which was part of the Spanish Empire at the time, and he became vice governor of the island of Cebu. And over time, he became the largest grower of hemp in the world. And so I've always had that legacy. So I've always kind of had hemp on the brain, thanks to my great-grandfather, Diego.
And you've honored him by naming your company after him. And tell me what led you to make this particular career path where certainly the legalization in your state has a lot to do with it, but what made you decide to capitalize on that in the way we'll talk about in a moment?
Yeah, absolutely, Alan. So three main reasons. Number one, I had grown up thinking that marijuana is somehow bad for you. And, I grew up in the era of Ronald Reagan, Nancy Reagan, just say no. And right. I thought, well, there must be a very good reason to say no. And I hadn't really looked into any of the evidence. And so a very good friend of mine, colleague at Microsoft, did a bunch of research on it and came to the conclusion that that in the next 5 to 10 years, marijuana will actually come to be regarded as a health food.
Uh-huh.
And so that completely blew my mind. And I did the research myself, found out that it is absolutely safe. It is not toxic at all, even in very large quantities.
What about the fact you're inhaling into your lungs like you would a cigarette? Can that be good for you?
Actually, breathing in smoke of any kind is in and of itself is not good.
Right.
Tobacco is extremely harmful.
Oh, yeah.
They've done studies and found that people who smoke marijuana but don't smoke tobacco actually do not have an increased risk of lung cancer over non-smokers, people who don't smoke anything. And in fact, if anything, there's a slight tendency in the opposite direction. So what's amazing is that smoking marijuana is actually nowhere near as harmful as smoking tobacco.
You've decided to take this to a level that you want to be the gold, what's the word? I guess the Cadillac or you want to be a very high-end marijuana dealer, basically, correct?
Exactly, yes. Mm-hmm.
So did you do market research? Did you do any? You want to be a niche within a niche product.
That's exactly right. And so here's the thing, Alan. You've got a lot of first-time users or people who will become first-time users when it's actually legal to purchase the product. So right now in the state of Washington, it's legal to possess, it's legal to consume in privacy, but there is no legal way to actually go and purchase it. So when it becomes legal for us to open up our stores in the state of Washington and in the state of Colorado and other states as they become legal, you're going to have a whole lot of first-time users. And as well as baby boomer folks who maybe used it 30 years ago and then they got busy. Right. Got married, had kids, and it simply wasn't the responsible thing to do. But now that it's legal, they can kick up their heels and actually enjoy it. So if you're going to be trying a product for the first time or for the first time in several decades, you want to get the very best product that you can. And so I believe that although it's a niche market, as you correctly point out, it's also I believe, going to be a huge market because, let's face it, we're an affluent society, and as Americans, we generally try to get the best quality product.
And you're making an interesting point that if you are a new user, you want to have the best experience possible. Right?
Exactly.
So where will your weed come from? Where will you get the best of the best?
So all of the product that we're going to sell in the state of Washington will be grown in the state of Washington. And likewise, all the product that we will sell in Colorado will be grown in Colorado. And now that's by the respective state laws. Now, once it becomes legal nationwide, then there'll be I presume that there will be a lot less restrictions on intrastate trade of marijuana.
What will make your marijuana better than anybody else's?
So there are several factors. Number one is in the actual strain of the product, the actual variety of the marijuana plant itself. There are dozens upon dozens of different varieties, and botanists over the decades have crossed, an Afghan variety with a Thai variety, and they've created all these exotic different strains.
Right.
And different strains have different properties. Some of them are great for, having a really good creative burst. Others are great for just mellowing out and, going to sleep, and everything in between. And so finding exactly the right strains to provide the experiences that our customers are looking for is absolutely crucial. And then, but strain is just the beginning. Just like, having good, if you're a human, if you've got good genes, does that guarantee you're going to have a good life? Obviously not. The way that you're raised, nurture, is extremely important. And so a lot of the growers out there are so passionate about their craft. They're literally artisans at caring for their plants, the nutrients, the water. Some of them even play classical music to their plants.
What about the legal hurdles that have to be overcome before you can actually do business? It's recreational pot legal, but you can't sell it. You can't, there's still all kinds of legal issues. So how do you get to that place?
Right. So that is that's the $100 billion question, Alan. And I say $100 billion because it's going to be a $100 billion industry across the United States. Right. So you've got the feds that have, they don't want to look weak. They don't want to come across as like, we're just going to, capitulate. So I think the federal government feels an obligation to do something and not just, roll over. On the other hand, the states have spoken loud and clear. Washington and Colorado, for starters. A lot of other states are working on their own initiatives right now. Right. So the states have their rights, and there's a really interesting constitutional question of whether this is a states' rights issue or a federal government has the right to impose. And but I simply look at history, and you look back in the days of Prohibition, where do a side-by-side comparison. Alcohol is physically addictive. Marijuana is not physically addictive. Alcohol is toxic.
No, I understand all the arguments, but still, there are legal issues, and how do you know they'll be solved in such a way that will enable you to do business?
Well, if you simply look at the parallel again with Prohibition, leaving aside the side-by-side comparison with alcohol, back in the days of Prohibition, nobody said, hey, alcohol is a great thing, and it's great that all these people are messing up their lives with alcohol. But people realized over time that the laws criminalizing alcohol were doing a lot more harm than the alcoholic.
So you just think people will come to
themselves.
their senses and it'll eventually be legal? We're just on a train that's not going to go in the opposite direction at this point.
You have said it perfectly, Alan. That's exactly
we have a little, just short on time here, but I want to get in a call if we can. Doug in Seattle with Jamen Shively. Go ahead, Doug.
I'm just curious, a simple question. Do you think, Mr. Shively, that harder drugs like cocaine and heroin are going to go up or down in price as a result of legalization of marijuana? And I'll take my answer.
All right, Doug, thank you. What do you say, Jamen?
That's a really interesting question. So I'll give you my view on it, right? So we've got this whole population of drug dealers out there, which we have largely created by making marijuana illegal.
Right.
And so you've got all these drug dealers selling marijuana, and that's, maybe 70% of their business in typical cases. And then once they've got a clientele that they're selling all this marijuana to and, making their bread and butter, and they see they can make really fat margins on cocaine and heroin, maybe they'll go to their customer and say, hey, try this cocaine. I just got some of this stuff in here. Here's a free sample, right? And there begins the slippery slope. If you take away the platform of marijuana from those criminal drug pushers, they no longer have the platform from which they can introduce much more harmful drugs, cocaine and heroin, et cetera, to those clients. We completely eliminate that base.
But you don't really eliminate it totally till all drugs are legal, right?
Well, here's the thing. I actually don't think all drugs should be completely legal. Marijuana is a very special case because it's absolutely harmless. Cocaine, methamphetamine,
but you're still going to have
heroin,
dealers. You're still going to have dealers for that stuff who'll make it on a black market, right?
You know, that's a really interesting question. So, for my argument of the last couple of minutes, thanks to the gentleman Doug's question, I think we're going to drive. You're going to see a lot fewer drug dealers, and you're just going to be left with a much smaller population doing a much more dangerous business. And I think there are other solutions for cocaine and heroin addicts. That might be a different topic for a different night.
Well, listen, I appreciate having you on, Jamen. It's Jamen Shively, and the company is Diego Pellicer. Am I pronouncing that correctly?
Pellicer, that's correct.
Pellicer.
Diego Pellicer. Alan, thank you so much. It's been a pleasure and an honor to be on your show.
Thanks for your time, sir.